I'm Becky Fawcett, a mom by adoption, an infertile blonde, a female founder, and a businesswoman. I laugh every time I have to do one of these intros because the podcast rule books say you have to do the same thing every single time you do an intro. Not for me. I just want an intro, and I can't wait to talk about my next guest because I've known her a very long time. We have no idea how we met. And now I'll get back to my intro because it's imperfect, which is me. I tried to be perfect for so long in my life and do everything that everyone else was doing. And then I tried to have children. And that's the plot twist. Now I look for any opportunity to be different. I'm outspoken. I'm an advocate who wants to change the world. And sometimes that gets me into a lot of trouble. But for the most part, it helps me make real connections with really amazing people. And my next guest is no exception to that. Welcome to my podcast, The Fawcett Report. I'm so glad you're here. Today, you're going to meet my friend Pam Murphy, who is just the epitome of cool. If you've met her, she's just cool. There's no other way to describe it. She's got style. She's got an amazing background in magazines and media and is married to a famous chef, and they had a restaurant together. I mean, you're just cool. And now she has a travel business. So I'm going to let her introduce herself. She can tell you about her bio. But Pam, thank you so much for joining us today on the Fawcett Report.
Thank you so much for having me. That's quite an intro. I don't know that I'm cool, but I like that you think that I am. And I love that you're not perfect because who is?
We grew up thinking we had to fit this mold. Now that I look back, it's like, oh my God, the weirder you are, the better you are.
I don't understand perfection, but I strive for it. I guess we all do, right?
You know, I always say in our house, like the word perfect is not okay unless we're talking about the dogs. Dogs are perfect. Dogs are pretty much perfect, I think, in my opinion. But so talk to me. Tell me, let's start with your style. I mean, there's so many different things we can talk about, and we will share the punchline now. We do have an adoption connection because there has to be an all roads lead to helpusadopt.org to be on my podcast. But let's start with your style. Like, you got your start in magazines in New York City.
I did.
Is it as effortless as it looks, or has this sort of evolved over time?
No, there's nothing effortless. Come on. And there's also nothing glamorous. So things that seem shiny and sparkly are not necessarily shiny and sparkly. I went to graduate school for magazine journalism. I was a really terrible student in high school and then went to college and found my way. And when college was over, I was like, wait, I just started liking this. Like, how can I keep going?
Yeah.
So I chose journalism because I really loved storytelling, but I was not a fantastic creative writer. So magazine for feature writing was much more my speed. And I did that for a long time. I started my own magazine called Madison that we published for 4 years. We were distributed by Hearst. It was spectacular, but I'm creative and not a fantastic business person. That lasted only 4 years. And then I've had a very twisty career. Every job I've had has had the same skill set. So I went from magazines into film production, and at the same time married my husband. We opened our first restaurant about 22 years ago in Tribeca called Landmark. And then we opened a restaurant called Ditch Plains in the West Village. And then we opened a second Landmark in the Upper West Side in the Time Warner Center, another Ditch Plains on the Upper West Side. And then we opened a restaurant called Kingside, which was in the Viceroy Hotel. And I did all the marketing and branding for him for 12 to 14 years, somewhere in there, until we realized that working together was not a great idea.
You don't know how people do it. That's really hard.
It was really hard. And it was so much about him because he ended up on a show on the Food Network. So I spent my whole day talking about him. And at the end of the day, I was like, I can't even look at you. So this is not great. And during that time, I also started a website called The Select Seven, which was an online magazine that talked fashion and travel and lifestyle and all this kind of stuff. And then I closed it during the pandemic. And then after the pandemic, I was like, okay, well, now I'm ready for this, whatever this next act is. And the next act was travel, which really made a lot of sense for me in terms of I love putting pieces together. I've been in hospitality for years and years. I'm a people pleaser. So nothing makes me happier than sending someone out in the world, allowing them to have this incredible experience. And that's where I am now.
It's so funny. So I moved to New York almost 20 years ago from Philadelphia. And it's just incredible that I remember you were good at your job and Landmark landed in the New York Times immediately. And we came to New York to eat there.
It's so funny.
I mean,
It was
it's just so funny. It's just I came to New York for a weekend for a meal at that restaurant that we read about,
I hope we
and,
delivered for you.
it was I remember you wanna know how crazy I am about food? The thing was the bone marrow with that little
Oh, yeah.
tiny spoon
Yep. Yep.
and that bread, and I remember it, and it was so good. I mean, come on, 22 years later, I'm still remembering.
Yeah, no, it's
So,
funny. It was a real staple, and we closed the restaurant right before the pandemic, and Mark uses it now as a private event space, but he also does a pop-up restaurant once a month, and it's been, like, wildly successful, filled mostly with old regulars of Landmark who come back just because it was this moment in time in Tribeca when everybody knew everybody else, and it just felt like a really small neighborhood, and, Landmark was this destination where, like, families came. We would have, like, the early rush of everyone with their little kids. I mean, my daughter was 9 months old when we opened. It was a time. It was a real time. We miss it.
I can imagine because it's such a social animal. It provides its own life.
Yeah, totally.
Living in New York, I get asked all the time, I'm sure you do too, where do you find your inspiration living here?
These days, I find my inspiration by leaving here a little bit. There's an energy here, obviously. I mean, I'm born and raised here. I've lived here for 56 years. It can be a hard place to live, I think, but I think it also allows you a freedom of movement that a lot of places in this country don't allow you in terms of like, you don't have to get into a car to go somewhere. So you can really
Uh,
just walk and think and listen to a podcast or listen to music. And, I mean, I've traversed this city and I think it's really just in the ability to walk out your door and choose a different adventure every day.
I think the streets are the best place to get
Yeah.
out and clear your head and say hi to a stranger or walk with your head down.
Yeah.
It really is an interesting animal to live in. And you're right. Some days I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? Because it's not easy every day. So let's talk about how you made this jump into travel. I've watched you since you started this on social media, talk about your trips and the pictures and the food and the destinations. And I love that you say, I believe every trip should transform you completely. So how does it work with someone calls you and says they either have a destination in mind or they say, I want to experience this and you pull it all together for them or
And
how does it really
yeah, I
work?
mean, every trip is different. Every client is different. Some people come with a full plan of what they want. They know what hotel they want to stay in. They know exactly where to go. And then other people say, like, I have 2 weeks in over spring break. I want to go somewhere where there's culture and art or beach and warmth or whatever it is. And we work it out together. I mean, I think, the thing about travel is it's super stressful. No matter how often you travel, no matter how good you are at it, the minute you leave your house, like, even if you're going to the most beautiful, most luxurious hotel on the planet, there is a level of anxiety, I think, that everybody has every time they pack a bag to leave. I mean, right? Packing is stressful.
To get to the packing issue. That is a huge issue.
My Instagram bio is chronic overpacker. I'm not the person to talk to about packing. I'm super organized until I'm not. Like, I have everything in like a pile by outfit by day, and then at the 11th hour, I just throw everything else in with. So I think my job is to really understand who my client is and to try to make the process of it super smooth and as stress free as it can be, and to also give them the things that they wouldn't find on their own. That's sort of my toxic trait is like finding
Yeah.
the places that not
Yeah.
everyone knows or trying to find the places that not everyone knows about. But really it's the planning process is different for everyone. And everything is custom and tailored to other people. Sometimes people ask me like, oh, can you send me a sample itinerary? And like, I don't have sample itineraries. Like every itinerary is creative for every client. And I just really love that aspect of it.
Yeah. I love that you have this "we'll travel for" list. I mean, I think we all sort of have that. I mean, I personally and people don't get it, I just wanna go to cities.
Yeah.
I wanna stay in a city like I live there. My friends are like, "You're crazy that you wanna do that." I'm like, "Well, I live in a city. I love a city." I think the only trade I would do for a city is Capri and Positano. That's my favorite. If I could go there every summer for the rest of my life, I'm good.
Okay. Yeah, I'll give you some cheats for those 2. A little less crowded, a little less known, although getting more. But yes, those are 2 big
Yeah.
I mean, I think I will travel for food. I get very stressed out when I have clients who don't want me to book their meals and they're gonna wing it. You're gonna
Yeah.
wing it? It's making me very nervous. I've gone from Milan to Bologna for the day just to eat a bowl of
Look,
bolognese.
what's the single best meal you've had if you travel for food?
Oh
Like, if
god,
you have to pick one. You have to pick one.
I don't know if I could. That's so awful because there's like the best Thai beef salad I've ever had in Paris. There's the best pizza I've ever had in Florence. There's the best overall Italian food I've ever had at La Scoglio. But you can't make me choose a best meal.
I don't
Yeah.
know. Everybody has something.
Yes, I have like things in places. The roast leg of lamb at La Petite Chaise in Paris is like the best thing I've ever eaten in terms of a roast leg of lamb. But yeah, I don't have a top one
When
meal.
you and Mark travel, do you agree on food?
Yes. He will occasionally, like, if we're traveling with other people, he will go and do, like, a prefix tasting menu that has, like, a lot of foam and things, and that's not for me. But other than that, we are, like, very much aligned in food. And we have been known to have a restaurant pull up another table for the amount of food that the 2 of us have ordered. Because,
That's
you
so
don't ever
funny.
wanna leave a restaurant with regret. That's also a big fear of mine. It's like, I'm in a place where I don't know if I'll be back in this town or city or whatever it is, and there's 11 things on the menu that I wanna try, and I may never get back here. So you gotta try them all.
I think even going out to dinner in New York, when I go out and it's not a good meal, I'm like, oh my God, I just wasted a dinner here. I get very upset about that. And it doesn't need to be fancy. I mean, it can be a hole in the wall as long as it's just delicious down to the last bite. You also talk about in your philosophy about the perfect barefoot chic, looking for the under the radar hotel. How do you do this? And are people really barefoot on their vacations or no?
Well, depends where they are. I mean, I was just in Mexico, and there's a resort in Four Seasons Resort in Punta Mita called Naviva, and you would totally be barefoot there all the time. It's incredible. And speaking of Four Seasons, like, I think the thing about travel and historically with travel agents is there was this idea that all travel agents do is pick the most expensive or the most well-known hotels for people because it's the easiest thing to do. And I don't think that that's true anymore, but I do think that there's a comfort in things that are known. And I use Four Seasons only because it's everywhere and it's so universal. And like, the product that you're going to get, and it's an incredible product. The bed's always going to be super comfortable. The pillows are always going to be amazing. The service is always going to be incredible, but it's not always the place that feels authentic in the place. There are certain Four Seasons hotels that I would take over any hotel anywhere. Like the Four Seasons in Florence to me is absolutely incredible. It's an old Medici palace that is just spectacular. The very famous Four Seasons in Taormina was an old monastery and is just you have no question about where you are when you're in it. And so I think that the real talent in designing travel now is knowing when to use those things that are more well known and knowing when to find the places that are a little lesser known because you will have maybe a more authentic experience or it's not better, right? I mean, a Four Seasons is always going to be fantastic, but maybe you're going to find a place that just feels a little bit more like you live in the place. Maybe when you go to Mexico City, you're going to stay in a place like Casa Polanco or Colima 71 and stay with locals. And, it's just so it's sort of finding the sweet spot of how to balance those things and design a trip that really takes you to the place and keeps you in the place. Because it's very easy to get on a plane and go very far and get there and not really feel like you've gone anywhere.
Yeah, so let's tie that into travel mistakes. I don't know. I find it very hard sometimes to go somewhere totally new and know exactly what to do. And you're spending a lot of money. You're spending a limited time that you have. And if you're with your kids, you're traveling, unfortunately, during awful times of the year because you have to travel during spring break or Easter break or spring or summer and or Christmas. And it's so crowded. So how have you ever gotten a request and known that a family or person is headed down the wrong road with their request and do you redirect them?
Yes, I've definitely redirected people. I mean, not everyone's open to being redirected. Some people just want to do what they want to do. But the flip side of that is also people are nervous about crowds, particularly in Italy at the moment. It's just always crowded or the weather. And I always say, you have to do it when you can do it. Yes, will things be crowded? Sure. But we can figure out ways, also depending on budget. If you have the budget, we can take you to Versailles when it's closed. We can get you into the Vatican when it's closed.
And
Um,
this is when you need dinner reservations
right.
because,
Yes, of course.
if you
Yeah,
have the reservation, you're okay.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, theoretically. I think it's, you do what you can do when you can do it. I have redirected people more just in terms of like hotels that I know aren't great, or sometimes we'll be mid trip and I'll have somebody who's doing something similar and I'll get things change so quickly, right? So a hotel that was great a year ago might not be great anymore. And if I have someone who's going to, hotel X and I have clients who happen to be or somebody in my company has clients there now and it's bad feedback, I will always say to a client like, "Hey, listen, we got I'm hearing not great things. I think we should pivot." And I think people appreciate that for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's hard. Now we're going to come to the overpacking issue. I'm not kidding. I have to start packing for a trip, which is really great in an apartment in New York City because you don't have the spare guest room. At least I don't to like do this. So it's in the living room. The suitcase comes out. It freaks the dogs out. They know exactly what's going on. So that's a nightmare. But I have to pack like a good week out because I like clothes and I like my outfits. And it's terrible. I don't understand how people can go. I have a friend who can go away for over a week with a carry-on bag. I have no idea how she does it.
I gotta tell you something about a carry-on. I've had this conversation a lot recently because we had a huge company-wide discussion about this. I think that the superiority complex people who carry on have is insane. And I think that it is the most I did it. I went to Spain 2 weeks ago and it was a 5-day trip and I was like, I'm gonna do this in a carry-on. And I did it in a carry-on and my carry-on weighed about 437 pounds.
Yeah.
So I needed
Yeah.
18 people to help me get it into the overhead bin. And that was on my long haul flight. So my short Ryanair flight, I was super stressed out the entire time that they were gonna make me check it anyway, which they didn't. But the stress of it, of all of it, was like, I'm not. I'm actually leaving for Italy on Sunday, and I think I need to do carry-on because I have weird transfers and stuff, and I am already stressed out about that, because I agree with you. Like, I go to Paris all the time, and I always wanted to be one of those women who gets on the plane with their handbag
Yeah.
and the
No, that's not me either.
meanwhile, I'm a hot mess. I've got, like, compression socks and, antibacterial wipes and my headphones and my cords and my computer and my iPad and my book and my this and my that and, like, snacks and face stuff and eye masks and they're just sitting there, like, drinking champagne and holding their very small purse. That's not me. I'm always gonna be a hot mess when I travel. That's just the way it's gonna be. I like to have
Oh
my
my
stuff
gosh.
with me.
No, I am the who. I like costume changes. I like options. I can't, and I really try. I really do try.
I
And it's just
yeah.
embarrassing. It's really embarrassing, but I'm just like, oh God, here we go.
I have learned that the smartest way to do it, I use for myself and for my clients a company called Luggage Free. And for example, I am going for Thanksgiving. We're doing Thanksgiving in Paris. And from there, I'm going to be there for 2 weeks. And from there, I'm going to a travel conference in the south of France. And from there, I'm going to Switzerland. So it's 3 entirely different wardrobes that I need. So I will ship suitcases to and
Mm.
from everywhere via luggage free. It's like playing Jenga with my suitcases. One will go to south of from here, one will go to the south of France, one will go to Switzerland. From the south of France, that suitcase will be shipped back home. And when I get to Switzerland, my suitcase with my ski stuff will be waiting it for me. And then that's the one that I'll bring home. So I'm never traveling with
Okay, so
a
that
full
whole
suitcase.
concept stresses me out. And here at work, I would say I'm like a logistics expert. But when it comes to things like this is why people like you are so great. When it comes to things like this, I fall apart. I'm just like,
Well,
oh
that's
my
what we're
God,
here
tell me
for.
where to be.
Yeah. But I find it's helpful. I think I usually print out a calendar and write down what I'm going to wear.
Oh, I have to do that. Yes. I map it out. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, and I do that, I map it out, and then at the 11th hour, all the things that I was considering that didn't make the cut get into the suitcase anyway. So it's
Yeah. And my suitcase is always all black. Doesn't matter where I am.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
All black all the
And
time.
then you don't wear
Love
90% of it. There's a hilarious meme it's somebody like leaving baggage claim with their luggage, and it says something like prayers and thanks to all of the outfits that just traveled with me for
Yeah.
2 weeks and never saw the light of day.
Now we're going to take this to the turn into my favorite topic on the planet. And I'm going to start with this introduction. For those of you listening who don't know, when you adopt domestically, the way we did, both of us, you create back when I adopted. I don't know about you, Pam, but I had to create a profile book.
Yep.
Now it's all done online.
Mine was online.
Okay, mine was a storybook. Jane's now 20 and Brooke's about to be 16, so it was a while ago. It's basically so you can connect with an expectant mother who's considering adoption and she's going to pick the family that she places with, and you have to tell this expectant mother about you. And part of our life was travel. And that was it. Like we would travel. And back then, there were always great, like, you'd find out on the Thursday night that there were remnant seats from Philadelphia to Paris, and off we'd go because we had nothing to hold us back. And we would just do stuff all the time. So when I got picked by Jane's birth mother, she said, I need you to promise me two things. And the funniest thing is, Brooke's birth mother said the same exact thing to me. You need to promise me that they will get a college education, and you need to promise me that they will travel the world. And I get all choked up because it's like getting them that passport when they were little was just keeping a promise. And that's it. And I feel very cool. Like when my kids say where they've been, I just honor these birth parents with these trips. And I think, oh my God, they're living the life exactly that she wanted them to live. But that's my tie in to this subject matter. But tell me about your children because you've got a great story too.
Yeah. My daughter Campbell is just turned 22 in July. She's biological. I guess about when she was 2 years old or just under 2 years old, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, which was not great timing. And like right after she was born, it's funny. Like I'm an only child. I didn't want her to be an only child. But literally the minute she was born, my husband Mark was like, okay, we need to have 9 more. And I was like, oh, hold on, buddy. Like I'm literally in the delivery room still. So in any event, I found out I had breast cancer. I went through all the things that I had to go through. The day before my mastectomy, I was at Sloan Kettering for pre-admission testing, and they map your lymph. I mean, this was 20 years ago, so things might be different now, but they map your lymph nodes with like a radioactive dye the day before. And I was in the basement of Sloan Kettering, and the nurse comes out and says, Pamela Murphy, there's a phone call for you. And I get on the phone, and it's my surgeon's office, and they say, have you been injected with anything yet? And I said, yes, why? And she said, do you know that you're pregnant? And I said, no, obviously I don't know that I'm pregnant. I was like 2 weeks pregnant. So I left there. I went to my surgeon's office and he said, listen, we're going to do everything we can. We're going to not use anesthesia to cross at the placenta. Hope, this radioactive dye shouldn't have any effect, but we'll watch it. The only issue is if your cancer is spread and you need to have chemo, this is not going to be a viable pregnancy. So I needed to have chemo, had a DNC. And here's my chance to get political, people. That pregnancy would have killed me because it turned out that I had estrogen positive cancer. It all worked out in the end because had I kept that child, I would be dead now. So when I learned that I needed to go through chemo, we met with the oncologist. I was 36 years old at the time, I guess. It was me and my husband and my mother in his office. And he said, I know that you were pregnant and I know that you're trying to have another child. I think that you should think about freezing your eggs and you can use them when you're finished. And this was before we knew that I was estrogen positive. I said, I'm going to be 40 years old when I'm done with this. And I'm not waiting until I'm 40 years old. We're going to adopt a child. And I had never, literally just came out of my mouth and everybody sort of looked at me. And my oncologist said, this is not the time for you to think about adoption. You're about to go through some really bad stuff. And this is not, it's a lot. And I said, you don't know me. This is exactly the time for me to do this. And we got home and my husband was like, I'm sorry, what? And I said, listen, you can get on the bus or you can get off the bus. But this is where this bus is going. I will do whatever they tell me to do. But at the end of the day, Campbell's not going to be an only child. I'm not going to apologize for this. That's not what I want for my family. I want her to have a sibling, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to make that happen. And the only way to do that is to adopt a child. Like, that's it. We're out of options. And we started the process. We were very lucky because the process, I don't know what it's like now. I don't imagine it's evolved in any kind of way. But
It's a horrible process.
The process to be approved was mountains and mountains of paperwork and fingerprints, and no states talk to each other. So you have to pick a state that speaks to New York, and you have to find an adoption agency in that state that's willing to take you. I mean, it's a whole thing. But we were lucky. That was in May that we were finally approved, and our son was born in October. So I did not have to wait.
That's quite quick.
Very, very short. It was very quick. Mark's biggest concern was, we have a biological child. Am I going to love and adopt a child as much? And I said, well, you're going to have to work that out on your own. And I don't know the answer to that. Like, I don't know. Maybe we're not. Like, maybe this is a terrible idea. And so the story I always tell after saying that is that when he was born, I was very close with his birth mother, and I was in the room when he was born, and I was the first person to ever hold him.
That's me and Jane. Yeah, that's my story with Jane.
And the first time Callan, that's my son, asked about his birth story, we started to tell him, and Mark said, and Mark was not in the room. Mark said, I was the first person to ever hold you. And I said, hold on. I'm going to have to fact check you because you weren't in the room. With all due respect, that was me. Point being, the minute someone hands you a baby and says, this is the person that is your person, there couldn't be less difference between biological and adopted. And if anything, I always told Callan, like, I worked so hard for you. There's so many layers, obviously, of what I was going through at the time, but I have such gratitude for him, and people tell me I saved his life, and he 100% saved mine because that whole process got me through what I was going through. I am so grateful for it. I don't know. I just feel like I was given a real opportunity to take this baby and just, I just, I don't know, I can't even put into words.
I've now been in the adoption world for 20 years, helpusadopt.org. My work here is 18 years. And people say you have, just like I asked you the dish, what's the one dish, one restaurant, one meal? People ask me, what's the one thing you have to know about adoption? The one thing, it is so easy to love a child that did not come from your body. That's it.
Right. Yeah,
That's it.
really, that's your baby, and it's like there's nothing, and it's so interesting too, right? Especially in this house, like we've really gotten to see like nature versus nurture, and people are who they are when they're born. Like that's their personality is like to some degree, but then you also see that like it's just your family, like, and there's a million different ways. When I was going through chemo, and we had been talking about having more kids, and my daughter at the time was 2.5 years old. And one night I was putting her to bed, and she said, we had a friend who had just had a son named Finn. And my daughter Kim was like obsessed with Finn, and she wanted to have many babies named Finn in the house. So one night I was putting her to bed, and she wouldn't go to bed. And I was like, mommy doesn't feel good. I have a tummy ache. Like I need to go to bed too. You need to get into bed. And she goes, oh, you have a tummy ache. Do you think there's a baby in your tummy? And you never know when you're going to have to tell these stories these truths to your kids. And I said, no, there's no baby in my tummy. And she said, how do you know? And I said, well, actually, like, I can't ever happen that you're the only baby that's going to come from my tummy. And she said, well, what about my 9 babies named Finny? And I said, we never agreed to 9, or maybe she said 5. And I said, but there's a lot of ways to make a family. There's a lot of ways to do this. And she said, I know, we can order one from Fresh Direct. And I thought that definitely speaks to the amount of Fresh Direct.
Oh my gosh. So cute. So
But,
cute.
yeah.
But that's great that she knew.
Yeah.
Granted, no Fresh Direct option, but she knew there were
Would be
different
easy.
ways.
Yeah, we were always super clear about it, and Callan has known that he was adopted from the day that he was adopted. I think the shame that surrounded it for so long it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. It's still there. My kids say the worst part about being adopted, when I say, is there anything hard about being adopted? Because I just do like check-ins. I'm like, I think it's great, but maybe I'm missing something. I want to be in tune with you. And they're like, Mom, being adopted is so normal. The worst part is the way the world still reacts to the stigma. And that's the hardest part. Like when people hear I'm adopted, they back off for a minute. And it's hard to take that. I, of course, go charging in, but it's not my story, it's theirs. One of the things I did want to say at this point for our work at Help Us Adopt, and that I'm so proud of, is that we give grants to a lot of cancer survivors. And obviously the work that we do at Help Us Adopt is so fulfilling in so many ways. But that group of men and women, some even have childhood cancers that they've survived, and helping them build their families is just one of the greatest honors ever. I know that a lot of people do get the opportunity to preserve their fertility, and that is terrific if that is the road you choose and you have enough time. But some people don't. Some people don't have enough time, or they don't have the money to do it because it's not cheap. I love that we are an option for the cancer community to help them build their families. I love that. So what's next for you?
My daughter's home now. She works here in New York now, but for the last couple of years, my husband travels a lot for work, and I just was here, and I was like, I gotta get out of here. I didn't start traveling
It's
till I
your
was 30.
chapter.
Yeah, and I didn't start traveling till I was 30. So I have a lot of places to see and things to make up, but exciting stuff. Our son is going to go to college next year to play basketball, which is exciting. My daughter's got promoted in her first job. So like
That's
everyone's
great.
doing what they're supposed to do. And I'm just going to keep doing this for as long as I can.
It's amazing. We have time for one last question, and I do fall into this category. If I could travel once a month, I would. And if I could go spend a month in Capri and Positano every summer, I would. But what happens when your bank account does not match your travel dreams? Like what is the best piece of advice you could give to people who really do want to see the world, but they're not on a Four Seasons budget?
There are so many places that are not that. There's so many ways to do it. We have a lot of tricks up our sleeve when we need them. It's finding the places that are amazing, but not everything needs to cost 1,000 euros at night. You can find stuff for less. And you can also find different ways to travel. I mean, maybe it's just doing more stuff on your own when you're in a city or a place. It's renting a car instead of having drivers. I mean, I don't love Airbnb in a lot of places, but there are apartment rental places that we vet and use that are always a great option. You don't have to eat every meal out. Like if you book anything with me, for the most part, you'll get your breakfast included in every hotel. But sometimes like getting a pot of coffee in a hotel can be like 30 euros or whatever. And it's just like things like that you don't need to spend money on.
I remember once on a trip, I think it was my first trip post Jane, and I went without Jane. I also felt like my arm had been cut off my body. I was in Rome, one of my favorite cities, and I was so sad to be away from this baby, which I did not expect. And I remember having breakfast in the hotel. It was crazy. Like my breakfast was $75. I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
eat like that. I don't need that. And then we started just going to the corner place and chugging a cappuccino at the counter and living more like locals. And because I wanted to do the lunch and the dinner and everything.
There's a balance. It's also knowing what's worth the splurge and what's not.
Yeah, exactly. So tell everybody where they can find you, because I think after this conversation, they're definitely want to follow your Instagram, because it is I think every time you post something, I'm like, screenshot. I can remember all this.
My Instagram is pam.stagram. So it's pam.stagram. I also have my company's called Wandrist Travel, which is a made up word, but it's spelled Wandrist. So you can also find me on Instagram at wandrist.travel. And then my website is wandrist-travel.com.
Keep showing us great things and your style and your
Thank you.
delicious meals, and we'll be watching. Thank you so much for being here. 30 Seconds with Becky Fawcett. I loved that conversation with Pam. One of the things that I really do love about adoption stories is no two are the same. And right there in that conversation, both of us ended up at the adoption store on completely different roads. And Pam's road through having breast cancer, losing her fertility, and still wanting to be a mom again, she ended up at adoption store. And I am so proud that the work we do at helpusadopt.org supports that community. And we give so many grants throughout the years to cancer survivors, adult and children, who have grown up as cancer survivors and known their whole life that they were going to arrive at adoption store, but they just didn't have all that money to make it happen. So helpusadopt.org proudly supports their family journey with our grant program. And I hope you'll spread the word if you know anyone in the cancer community who could use our help, because everyone should have the chance to be a parent. 30 Seconds with Becky Fawcett. Thank you for listening to the Fawcett Report. I'm so glad you were here today. And here's to seeing the world a little differently and possibly using your voice to make a difference. You can follow the Fawcett Report on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. And you can message me on Instagram or Facebook. And I will actually respond, as long as you're not mean. You can disagree with me, you can share your point of view, but you can't be mean, because I don't do mean. And finally, if you're curious about my adoption advocacy and family building work through helpusadopt.org, you can find us there on Instagram and Facebook, as well as through the website, helpusadopt.org. See you next time.